Hi, welcome to INTERGENDERACTION, an Erasmus Plus project funded by the European Commission. In this chapter, we will talk about bias and stereotypes in professional communication and how to recognize and manage them in everyday workplace communication. Talking about bias and stereotypes may seem abstract or theoretical. In reality, these are very concrete mechanisms that influence the way we relate to colleagues, make decisions, and manage our teams every day. We often carry them with us automatically, unconsciously, simply because they are rooted in the culture in which we live. A bias, by definition, is a prejudice, a mental shortcut that our brain uses to process information more quickly. It is an evolutionary mechanism, but in a professional context, it can become a serious obstacle. Think, for example, about when during a meeting we tend to listen more carefully to a man who speaks in a decisive tone compared to a woman who expresses the same ideas with a more collaborative communication style. This is a typical case of unconscious gender bias. The same goes for generational dynamics. Sometimes it happens that more experienced managers underestimate the proposals of younger colleagues, perhaps because they are perceived as inexperienced or too impulsive. Conversely, younger people may think that their senior colleagues are stuck in the past or not up to date with new technologies. In both cases, we are talking about stereotypes that can undermine mutual trust and hinder collaboration. Research confirms that these phenomena are widespread. According to a recent Eurostat report, 40% of employees in Europe report tensions related to generational differences, especially in ways of communicating and work expectations. When these stereotypes creep into daily communication, in emails, in feedback, in meetings, the risk is that of excluding someone, of making a person feel inadequate just because of their age or gender. And often, all of this happens without bad intentions. So, how can we recognize and manage these stereotypes? The first step is awareness. Stop for a moment and ask yourself, am I listening to this person for what they are saying? Or is my judgment influenced by the person in front of me? Am I using inclusive language, or am I repeating stereotyped formulas such as, "You're too young to understand," or "You should be more aggressive to gain respect"? Being aware also means observing the context in which we work. Meetings, for example, are a key space. Who speaks most often? Who is interrupted most frequently? Who receives more credit for the ideas expressed? These dynamics say a lot about how communication is experienced and filtered through implicit biases. Another fundamental aspect is language. The words we choose say a lot about our values and our culture. Using inclusive language is not just a question of politically correct, but of respect and recognition of the identity of the other. Saying collaborators instead of team members, or avoiding paternalistic expressions when addressing younger colleagues can make a big difference. To help us develop this awareness, we can use some practical tools. One of the most popular is the IAT, Implicit Association Test, developed by Harvard, which helps us identify our unconscious biases related to gender, age, ethnicity, and other factors. It is a good starting point for reflecting on the way we perceive others. Another useful tool is the Bias Interrupter Toolkit from the Center for Work-Life Law, which offers concrete strategies for intervening in everyday situations where biases emerge, such as giving feedback, conducting meetings, or managing interviews. For example, it suggests asking specific questions such as, "What is this evaluation based on?" or "Have we applied the same standard to all candidates?" to make decision-making processes more objective. The method of structured meetings can also make a difference. Instead of letting the same people always speak, you can establish an order of interventions or assign roles in rotation. This allows less listened-to voices, such as those of young people or women, to emerge. Another strategy is reverse mentoring, where younger employees offer support or training to senior colleagues on topics such as technology, digital communication, or inclusive language. This reversal of traditional dynamics helps dismantle mutual prejudices. Finally, words matter. This is why inclusive language is a valuable ally. avoiding patronizing expressions, using gender-neutral pronouns when possible, and explicitly naming women in leadership roles helps build a more equitable environment. Of course, addressing these mechanisms does not mean becoming perfect overnight, but it does mean starting a journey. Organizations that invest in diversity, inclusion, and conscious communication training are now better able to retain talent, address complex challenges, and grow sustainably. That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening to our INTERGENDERACTION podcast, and remember, if you want to keep learning about intergenerational and gender diversity and inclusion, visit our official website, https://intergenderaction.eu, and don't forget to follow us on our social media. Funded by the European Union. Views and opinions expressed are, however, those of the authors only and do not necessarily reflect those of the European Union or agents, Erasmus plus France, Education Formation. Neither the European Union nor the grading authority can be held responsible for them. This work is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 International License. To view a copy of this license, visit http://creativecommons.org. Licenses by SAA 4.0. Logos are excluded from this license.